So today's lesson is about what mindfulness is. And essentially, mindfulness is the training and the practice of being in the present moment without judging it. We are constantly judging, which is a helpful thing sometimes. Sometimes it's helpful to be able to judge something so we can make an evaluation and improve a situation. But actually, when we find our minds are continually in judging mode, and it's judging that this situation is not good, this situation, I don't like it, um, then it can lead to a lot of problems. And currently, in this current situation that we are facing, of course, the mind is going, I don't like this. I don't like what is happening right now. So, mindfulness training is actually teaching us to be in the present moment, to be in this moment without judging it, and with a curiosity, developing a sense of curiosity about what it is like to be in this moment. So, maybe there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of nervousness, a lot of tension, a lot of stress happening in the world right now, which is completely understandable. What happens is when our mind is not in the present moment, when we start to project and think about the what ifs, what if the situation gets worse? What if I get infected? What if somebody that I love dies? Our mind actually runs off and starts to imagine this scenario. And in that process, it actually leads to all the same stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline being flooded throughout our bodies. So this worrying and jumping into the future about what might happen actually leads to a lot of stress. And our body can't distinguish between whether it is real or not. So the mind does two things. Well, it does many things, but two things that, in particular, in relation to mindfulness, that are relevant to know. So the mind can be here in the present moment, the body can be here in the present moment, and the mind can jump off into the future. And jumping off into the future can lead to anxiety. It leads to the what ifs and the worry that things may happen that may never actually happening. So this anxiety or this fear jumping into the future can be very problematic. It does another thing then, it can head into the past and it can ruminate over things and kind of oscillate over situations that we have been in where we regret what we've said or done, like maybe regretting not having gone home to see your folks in the last couple of weeks or months, regretting things that you can't change anymore. If we spend lots of time in the past, it can lead to depression. And if we spend lots of time projecting into the future, it can lead to anxiety. So what we want to do is train our minds to stay here in the present moment, to stay right here. And to do that, we actually have to come out of our heads and get into our bodies. We are rewarded very much in our current society to be in our heads, to think things through. We're rewarded by logic, and it's really important to think things through. But actually, what we need to do now is come out of our heads and get into our body, to feel what it feels like to be in the body, and to stop this monkey mind from racing around. It isn't about mindfulness, isn't about controlling the mind. It isn't about getting rid of thoughts. It's actually learning how to be with thoughts so that we don't dial into them and make and amplify our stressful situation. It is actually about how can we recognize that the thoughts are there and distance ourselves or disengage from them. It's as if we turned on a radio station and it's not a very nice radio station that's telling us all these nasty things that we don't particularly want to hear. So what we want to do is we want to change that radio station. We are not the thoughts that are going on in our minds, but often we identify with them, and that can lead to a lot of our problems. But we'll deal with that a little bit further down the line. For today's lesson is what mindfulness is. And mindfulness is learning to be in the present moment. So not getting caught into thoughts of future thinking or in thoughts of past thinking, things that we cannot change, that we do not know how the future is going to go, and we cannot change the past. So how do we stay here? Which is really important given all of the information that's flying around on social media, a lot of fake information, a lot of propaganda, a lot of stressful information going out there, so some of which is not true. So one thing I would say was always check that your source, if you're going to be consuming the media, check that your source is a reliable source. So just like we consume lots of things, we consume the food that we eat will help us to be healthy, and the food that we eat that is nutritious will help us to be healthy, or the food that we consume can help us to be unhealthy. Just like that, the media that we consume can either help us to have a healthy mindset or an unhealthy mindset. So we want to be very careful in times like this that we are consuming the right type of media. the type of media that is going to nourish you in a stressful time. So one of the things that you can do is engage in a course like this, where you are going to learn some skills around disengaging from those worrisome thoughts and living in the present moment. So what I would love for you to do now is we're going to do a practice around connecting with the present moment in our bodies. So our bodies are like this wonderful antennae. It's always taking in information all around us, but actually we're not very good at reading it. For some people, they don't necessarily feel very much from below their neck. They are just very head people. So the more we learn to connect with the body, the more we pick up information as it is happening, and we know how to then respond to it a little bit more effectively. The problem is that we become so disconnected from our bodies. For some of us, we don't recognize that our body is picking up stressful signals until maybe we have a heart attack or some other, chronic disease or illness. So the more we learn to get out of our heads and into our bodies, this big antennae that's picking up information, we can learn that actually, even in these stressful times, there are lots of moments of calm and peace and love and joy and gratitude. The more we can actually connect with the body, when we see that, touch of maybe your bedclothes is super soft and luxurious. Maybe you feel the wind against your face and that feels nice. Maybe you feel the sun on your skin and that brings a sense of warmth or contentment. Maybe you hear the birds sing. Maybe you hear a child laugh. Or conversely, maybe you hear something that really annoys you or makes you angry or agitated or irritated or anxious. But this, as soon as we can feel that, this is the moment that something has stimulated us. There's a stimulus there, and then we get to choose. So in the practice of mindfulness, there is a stimulus, and then there's a response. Often our response is so reactive, we don't even realize that there was a choice in there. So what we want to do is get to that point where we learn this is a stimulus, and now I'm going to choose how I'm going to react, as opposed to getting caught in a reactive pattern. So we can find ourselves reacting to a lot of media at the moment, to a lot of things that are happening around us, panic buying, and lots of things that seem like they will help us in the moment. But actually, one of the best things that we can learn to do is how do we connect with what is happening in our body right now. Recognizing what is there, allowing it to be there. If it's fear, if it's anxiety, allowing it to be there, learning to connect with it. And the best way of getting our brains back into gear, our bodies under control and our minds under control, is to label what is happening. So we have a part of our body. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the stress, because this is very real for what is happening for a lot of us right now. So if you imagine the brain represented by the hand, the thumb is the limbic system. So part of the brain that is the seat of emotions. The amygdala is there, and it is constantly surveying the surroundings around us, taking in information. And when we perceive stressful information, it will send cortisol and adrenaline throughout the body, so we're primed and ready to act. The cortex, if you imagine those to be the fingers, they wrap around the thumb, which is the limbic system. So when this cortex is engaged, the logic and reasoning part of the brain, it actually helps us to manage our limbic system. When one has got lots going on, when the limbic system has a lot going on for it, the cortex is generally gone. The lid has been flipped. We have literally flipped our lid, and then the limbic system can have a right old field day. So what we want to do is we want to learn to recognize what's happening in our body. Oh, there is anxiety, there's fear. I see it, I feel it in my body. Once we learn to recognize what's there, we can acknowledge it, and that actually brings our cortex back online. We label what is happening, and this actually helps us to get stressful reactions under control. The more we do this, the more skilled we become at it. So I suppose for today's lesson, it is really, what is mindfulness, and how do we bring ourselves into the present moment so that we can learn to manage stressful situations? So over the next number of days, we're going to build on this and build on the practice of it. So right now, that's the theory piece for today, and we're going to do a short practice on getting out of the head and into the body next. Okay, thanks so much for listening.